It was close to 2 a.m., and the fluorescent lights of the deserted Walmart cast long, unsettling shadows across the empty aisles. I was the overnight stalker, used to the eerie silence that settled over the store after closing. But that night, something felt different. An oppressive silence, a prickling on the back of my neck that wouldn't go away. I shook off the feeling, chalking it up to fatigue. With a sigh, I pushed my cart down the dimly lit aisle, the wheels squeaking in protest against the tiled floor. Discounted toys lined the shelves, their colorful packaging catching the harsh glare of the overhead lights. As I reached for a box of action figures, I thought I heard something, a faint whisper like the rustle of paper in the wind. I froze, my hands suspended in midair. The whisper came again, barely audible, yet unmistakable. I glanced around, half expecting to see another employee playing a prank on me. But the aisles were empty. The only company I had were the silent rows of toys. Shrugging it off, I resumed my task, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. But as I moved down the aisle, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. It was as if the very air was alive with hushed voices, their words indiscernible but filled with a sense of urgency. I stopped again, my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't right. Toys didn't talk. They were inanimate objects devoid of life or voice. Yet the whispers persisted, seeming to emanate from the boxes themselves. With a trembling hand, I reached for one of the dolls, a cheap plastic thing with painted-on eyes and a fixed smile. As my fingers brushed against its surface, a chill ran down my spine. The whispers seemed to coalesce around it, growing louder, more coherent. I recoiled, dropping the doll as if it had burned me. This couldn't be happening. I must be losing my mind. But as I looked around, I noticed something unsettling. The dolls on the shelves seemed to be watching me, their plastic eyes boring into mine with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. I took a step back, my breath coming in ragged gasps. This was wrong. I needed to get out of here. Now. I turned and bolted down the aisle, the whispers growing louder with each passing second. The store seemed to stretch on forever, the aisles twisting and turning in a maze of shadows and flickering lights. I ran, my lungs burning, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. The doors seemed miles away, mockingly unmoving. Just as a hand clamped onto my shoulder, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. It wasn't me. I slammed into the automatic doors, bursting out into the cool night air, the scream abruptly cutting off behind me. I never looked back as I burst out into the cool night air, my heart still hammering in my chest. I stumbled across the empty parking lot, the harsh glare of the streetlights casting long shadows that danced around me. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, each more terrifying than the last. What had I just experienced in there? Were the whispers real? Or had I finally succumbed to the sleep-deprived hallucinations of working the graveyard shift? I leaned against a nearby car, gasping for breath, my palms slick with sweat. The events of the past few minutes replayed in my mind, each detail etched into my memory with chilling clarity. The whispers, the dolls watching me with their lifeless eyes, it all felt too real to be dismissed as a trick of the mind. But as I tried to make sense of it all, a nagging doubt crept into my thoughts. What if I had imagined the whole thing? What if the stress and isolation of working nights had finally taken its toll on my sanity? I shook my head, trying to push aside the unsettling thoughts. No, I had heard those whispers, felt their icy fingers creeping up my spine. Something unnatural was happening in that store, and I needed answers. With newfound determination, I pushed myself away from the car and glanced back at the Walmart looming in the distance, its fluorescent lights casting an eerie glow against the night sky. Despite every instinct screaming at me to run far away, I knew I couldn't leave things unresolved. I had to go back inside, confront whatever had been lurking in those aisles, and find out the truth. As I made my way back towards the entrance, the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, a sense of foreboding washing over me like a tidal wave. The automatic doors slid open with a soft hiss, and I stepped back into the oppressive silence of the store, the familiar sights and sounds now tinged with an unsettling sense of dread. I retraced my steps down the dimly lit aisles, my footsteps echoing off the tiled floor. The toys stared back at me from their shelves, their plastic eyes seeming to follow my every move with a malevolent gaze. I shuddered, trying to push down the rising panic threatening to consume me. But as I reached the aisle where it had all begun, I froze in my tracks, my blood running cold. The boxes of toys lay scattered on the floor, their contents spilling out in a chaotic jumble. And there, in the center of it all, was the doll. The same cheap plastic thing that had seemed to draw the whispers to it, like a magnet. I approached it cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. The doll lay on its side, its painted-on eyes staring up at me with an unnerving intensity. And then, without warning, it moved. I stumbled back in horror as the doll's head turned slowly towards me, its plastic limbs creaking with the effort. A voice filled the air, low and rasping, sending shivers down my spine. "Run," it whispered, its voice dripping with malice. "Run while you still can." I didn't need to be told twice. With a cry of terror, I turned and fled, the echoes of the doll's warning ringing in my ears. I didn't stop until I was safely outside once more, the cold night air washing over me like a balm. But even as I caught my breath, I knew that I couldn't outrun whatever darkness had taken root in that Walmart. Somewhere, in the depths of the abandoned aisles, something sinister lurked, waiting for its next victim. And as I glanced back at the store one last time, I knew that I would never be able to forget the horrors that lay within.